I would be remiss as a founder and also as a person to like turn away from the people who aren't our ideal customer, but are still coming to us and trusting us and finding value in our products. So, you hear people talk a lot about psychographics over demographics these days, and how with the advent of the internet, we're really so much more connected than we ever have been before. So really just focusing on the psychographics, which are very similar. People are coming to us for herbal medicine regardless of age, background, location, because we all feel the same things and we all want the same things.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Female Founder World. It's Jasmine, your host, and today I'm chatting with Lauren Haynes. She's a clinical herbalist and the founder of Wooden Spoon Herbs. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Jasmine. How are you?
I'm good. How are you going?
Doing well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be a guest.
Of course, of course. So before we kind of get into questions about the business, I'd love to learn a little bit more for those listening about your background and what was your path to actually starting your company?
Yeah, so the path, I'm sure, as everyone's has been very windy. And when I started Wooden Spoon as kind of a passion project, there was no path. I was just doing things one after the other in the moment, what felt good, what was exciting me. And so I just stumbled upon herbalism in my early 20s, and it really turned a light bulb on for me, in that it was the synergy of all these things I was passionate about, like self sustainability, like self empowerment, nature, and then helping other people. It was really just oh, all of these things play together to form this system of healing. And I found it really through an interest in local foods. I had worked for a bakery all through college that was really involved in the slow food movement. And I had met a lot of farmers and was really just in that culture. And from there, started fermenting foods and learning about wild foods. And that kind of circularly led me to herbalism, as a natural, next step. So once I learned about it, it just consumed my life. And I always say I haven't read a fiction book since I discovered herbalism, because I'm constantly learning and reading more, reading more about plants. And there's just a lot to learn. So I had always wanted to be self-employed or entrepreneurial. My grandfather owned a shoe store, not secondhand, but seconds shoe store. Ironically, outside of the mountain town where I live now, which was an hour away from where he lived. So I think it's just very beautiful that we both ended up doing our thing down here. So he had that. And so that was my mom's side of the family's family business when she was growing up. And it wasn't active when I was younger, but I'd always heard stories about that. And it was always just very expansive for me. Oh, I can do that. He could do that. We can all do that. Right. And I wasn't quite sure what my thing was going to be. And so once I discovered herbalism, and started learning more about it, I started seeing oh, there are people my age in all these different places that are using, that are making things and selling them, and that's their livelihood. And I was I would love to do that. This was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I was born and raised and still living at the time. No one was doing it in that area, right? So I was well, why not me, kind of situation. And so I started making things from forage plants and plants that I was growing in my garden and selling them at the farmer's market. And then I went full time with Wooden Spoon in 2016, and it has taken off tremendously since then.
Could you give people who aren't familiar with Wooden Spoon a little bit, maybe just some milestones or insights that can help them understand where you are in the business growth? So maybe how many stockists you have or something like that to help people understand.
Sure, absolutely. So we are a team of 3 full-time, and then we have lots of freelancers that help us. And stockist-wise, we're in over 300 plus indie boutiques and grocery. Yeah, so there's a lot, big footprint. And that's all happened organically. 99% of that has been inbound traffic, which we're so excited about. And there's just been a lot of excitement about the brand. So yeah, we do have quite a big reach. We sell all over the country and in English-speaking countries worldwide, and really just grew that from the farmer's market stall that I had.
Incredible. So how did you, there's a big difference between manufacturing something or creating something for a farmer's market environment versus being able to produce at scale. How did you navigate that transition? And do you have any advice for people who maybe are, in the market phase or are selling kind of on a really small scale, maybe an Etsy store, into how they can boost their manufacturing to scale?
Definitely. So we manufactured everything in-house in a certified kitchen studio that we built out where we live in a little mountain town until 2019. So it really has only been a year and a half that we've had co-packers. And we really just grew out of producing ourselves. It was a matter of we couldn't keep up with demand. Like even as we doubled and doubled and doubled our batch sizes, we were selling as much as we could make. And so that's when we realized, we would actually save a lot of money if we let someone else handle all of this, especially because with our industry, so dietary supplements and, wellness products, there's so many regulations that as you scale are harder and harder to comply with. Or not harder and harder, but, more and more enforceable, more and more important because we have products going to so many people.
People are watching.
Yeah. And,
Mhm.
and we want to take care of our customers above all. So we decided to outsource our manufacturing in early, maybe Q4 of 2019. And we went to a mid-sized manufacturer where we were still able to handle all of the sourcing because sourcing was a very important thing for Wooden Spoon. We wanted to, when I created the brand or project, I just wanted it to be able to build a new supply chain. So we've always been very intentional about sourcing from small domestic herb farms any chance we get, as much as possible. And to this day, about 60% of our botanicals still come from small herb farms.
Fascinating.
Yeah, and that's such a challenge. Like people do not, at the time I was like, why does no one make tinctures? And why don't they source from small herb farms? And the answer is because that's a very hard business model to scale if scale is your goal. Right. And I think there are so many herbalists who are doing it beautifully on a small maker level scale. And that's beautiful and wonderful. And like their products are no less valid, of course. But I knew I wanted to have Wooden Spoon become something a lot bigger. So we outsourced to a mid-sized manufacturer. Their minimums were reasonable. I think there are 500 units of each product. And that kind of allowed me to get my feet wet because it was very hard to start outsourcing after I'd been so close to all of the process for so long, for years, 3 years at that point. So that kind of helped me get my feet wet and we quickly outgrew them as well in terms of, just needing regulatory upgrades. We wanted to be certified organic and they couldn't provide that. And again, just outgrowing that demand. So now we're with a, you know, legit co-packer and they handle everything from sourcing to lab work. And we're super happy, but it was a journey and it happened over the course of a few years. I would say for people who are still making things themselves, I would just really encourage you to enjoy every minute of that process and being so close to the making of everything. There's so many like upsides to being that intimate with your products, including being able to make small runs, test product market fit, experiment, have fun. Like these are things that are harder for me. Like we have our test kitchen where we're making our prototypes, but it's not the same, right? So I would just encourage them to be very grateful that they could still have control over every part of the process and go slowly. I think that really helped me. If I had gone from making everything ourselves to, a co-packer 100 miles away, hundreds of miles away, it would have been very hard for me because the middleman that we were with, or the midsize, I'm sorry, was within a day's drive. So we drove up there a lot. We like oversaw production a lot.
I agree. Like, I think that physical proximity to your product when you're, especially when you're in the early days and you're still refining what your product is, you're finding product market fit. If you've got something, especially something that's so, like, I feel like, that tinctures product and within that space is quite like a personal item. Like you need it to be exactly what you need it to be. Like there's not a lot of space for any kind of mistakes there.
100%. Yes. And we wanted to make sure they were doing it the way that we had done it and we could really scale not just in units, but we could scale in practice. That was so important. And I would also encourage anyone who is at that stage to be patient and find the right fit as your co-manufacturer because there's no rush. The last thing you want to do is rush into a co-packing relationship because they vary so wildly and they are so challenging to manage because these manufacturers have, hundreds of clients that they're maybe, maybe paying attention to more.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a couple of times there the R&D process. Can you talk through some of the ways that you gathered feedback and then you iterated your formulas or your recipes and what that process looked like or still looks like as you develop new products?
Absolutely. And I think that like being the, owner, operator, CEO, it is challenging to find that time to develop new products. That's something that I'm working through right now and am excited to bring on support for formulation from another herbalist in the near future. But we are still very intimately connected with our customers. And we've done 2 rounds of customer interviews this year to find out how people are using our products, what they're liking, what they're not liking. And it's very surprising because sometimes, like, for example, we had an alcohol-free formula that was in a base of apple cider vinegar and honey, which to me, as an herbalist and someone who's like fine with, all kinds of flavors and used to that because plants taste good, bad, and otherwise, it was so shocking to me that people hated that medium or that menstruum for the tinctures, which I was so proud of. And so that was, so we're always like getting these real insights, which also it feeds into R&D and then it feeds into marketing because we want to be speaking to how people are actually experiencing our products versus just, our perception. Because Lily and I were the full-time team until last week. We have a very new hire and we're both herbalists and have been for a long time. So
Oh, congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we're so excited. So as two herbalists running an herbal company, our perception is very different than our customers might be as people who are herb curious and kind of like just dipping their toes. So we're very excited to like have these very, in-person conversations or virtual conversations and learn straight from their mouths, like what they think and feel and how they use our products. I know that was a bit of a long-winded way to say that, but yeah, the R&D process is still very intimate and very customer focused.
I think that it's really interesting to hear how founders think about who their customer is, and some companies are really formal in the way that they have their persona, they are speaking to a specific person, they're developing for a specific person, whereas others are more just like guided by intuition because they feel like they are the customer, depending on as well like the size of the company. How do you think about who is your target customer and how have you formalized that or not?
So we definitely have our formal customer, and that's probably like our aspirational customer who we are trying to speak to, who we want to be buying our products. And that is largely modeled off of, in the beginning, I will say that was largely modeled off of me. Like I think a lot of founders, model their customers and feel like they're a good leader for a company or brand and, a good person to start something because of that. I think over time and through the customer interviews, through, analytic platforms, or analysis platforms, we have learned that our ideal customer is not always our purchasing customer. And so just making sure that we have multiple avatars essentially for our customers and we can speak to all of them at different times and on different platforms has been the way we've navigated that. But always checking in, like I definitely want to be a company that is always interfacing with our customers, like in a on a video call in a real way to make sure we're still doing everything right because our original super fans are always going to be the types of people we want being our customers into the future.
So just digging into that a little bit more. So when you say analytics platforms, I'm guessing you're looking at like social insights and Google Analytics and that kind of thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. And when you're talking about different avatars, like how do they differ from each other and how should other founders be thinking about who they're speaking to and how?
Absolutely. I think it's very unique with our company, but I'm sure every founder would be surprised to dig in and to see what they find. I think for us, like with herbal medicine, we have really the gamut. We have Gen Z who's excited because of our social mission and they want to move away from pharmaceuticals. We have the young moms who want plant-based and healthier alternatives for themselves and their children. We have, maybe people who are in their 60s who are starting to have some changes in their bodies and come to us to help find ways to support their bodies. And so I think like it really spans the gamut, and we don't like, I would be remiss as a founder and also as a person to like turn away from the people who aren't our ideal customer, but are still coming to us and trusting us and finding value in our products. So yeah, for me, it was really looking at those different age breakdowns. And I think, you hear people talk a lot about psychographics over demographics these days, and how with the advent of the internet, we're really so much more connected than we ever have been before. So really just focusing on the psychographics, which are very similar. People are coming to us for herbal medicine regardless of age, background, location, because we all feel the same things and we all want the same things.
Interesting. And how are you thinking about digital marketing now that you have, you've got the e-commerce store as well as your stockist? So how are you thinking about both driving sales on the e-com store and then also like supporting your retail partners with marketing? What are some things that are working?
Right. Well, we have our third full-time hire, and that was a marketing director. So that is, and it's not that we haven't obviously been marketing this whole time, but our wholesalers are such extensions of our team, our brand, and like ambassadors for us in our corner. So we are looking to really like nurture and enhance those relationships in 2022 and throughout 2021's holiday season, which we're embarking on right now. A lot of things that are working are gifts with purchases. So passing on gifts with purchase to our wholesalers so that they have a little incentive to get people in store and maybe increase their, order size as well as ours. So we're doing that on e-com and in store. And yeah, doing sales that align on e-com and in store. So passing through those discount rates to our wholesalers is something we've been working on. But yeah, I'm really excited to build out that program more.
Exciting. You said that you spend a lot of time, making sure you're really well versed and up to speed on your specialty, which is you're an herbalist, and that's what you are by trade. And I always find it like really interesting, like when people become specialists in an area and then they start a business around that or a product-based business. I think that they're often the best companies. Like I love when I see people start beauty companies who have worked as a beauty editor for 15 years because they really understand what they're delivering and how to speak to their customer. But are there any resources that have helped you kind of upskill on the business side of things as the company's grown to make sure that you grow with it?
Yes, absolutely. Loads of things. I didn't go to business school, so I'm constantly learning, and constantly reading. I will say one thing I recommend for young brands, once it's in the budget, is to find an advisor, even if that's someone you can talk to an hour a month. It is so vital in helping you structure your business, especially if you're like a solo founder and, team of one to, finding someone who can help you build those structures. And then just constantly like find some newsletters you like, find some in your field or in direct to consumer, whatever your niche is. But I subscribe to tons of newsletters. I love Nick Sharma's newsletter, just like all your platforms, if they have newsletters, subscribe to them for best practices. And I would say just like constantly reading business books. So I carve out the first hour of my day to read a business book. So I'm constantly, feeding myself with something new. Right now I'm reading a book called Story Brand by Bernadette Giwa, and it's fascinating. And then I was just reading, what else? I was reading Sacred Commerce by the founders of Cafe Gratitude. That was a fun one. Yeah, constantly furthering my education on business. Podcasts, I think, are the easiest because you can listen to them on a commute. They're free. So find some podcasts that you love. There are so many. So podcasts and books and just self-educating along the way.
Yeah, awesome. They're great recommendations. Awesome. All of your business advice. Really appreciate it. I really want to actually talk about some of your herbalist tips. I regularly see someone in New York who has helped me with a ton of stuff, especially around like my immune system and sleep. And I wanted to dig into, I feel like people who are starting companies, like they're on their go, go, go all of the time. And if there are any kind of remedies that you recommend for, supporting that kind of lifestyle.
Yes, definitely. So I kind of break it down into foundational and then nervous system support and then more targeted support. So my foundations would be making sure you're taking a whole foods multivitamin and closing any nutrition gaps, nutrient gaps that way, making sure you're either eating fermented foods on a regular basis. And by regular, I mean every other day. You're eating a portion of fermented foods or taking a probiotic, taking an omega-3, whether that's fish oil or algae based, and then vitamin D and magnesium. Those would be my last two of the foundations. For nervous system support in particular, which I think is vital, again, the magnesium is helpful with that. That's kind of the foundational support for the nervous system, and it's not even like you might think of nervous system and think like, well, I don't feel stressed. I don't feel anxious. It's not about that. It's about the constant amount of information we're processing, the constant amount, and this is for everyone, the constant amount of decisions we're having to make just being on all day long running a business, like that is so taxing to your nervous system. So there's a class of herbs called nervines, which are plants that act on the central nervous system. And they can either be stimulating in the case of coffee or calming, as in the case of lavender, chamomile, linden, milky oats. There are far more calming ones than there are stimulating, for good reason. And so finding one of those that resonates with you, each plant has secondary actions. So, for example, chamomile is number one calming, number two, great digestive support. So, if your stress, anxiety, etc., manifests as an upset stomach or butterflies in your stomach, chamomile is like the perfect herb for you because it kind of hits on both frequencies. If you are someone who has trouble sleeping because you have circular thoughts, then skullcap would be a fantastic nervine for you because it quiets the mind as well as toning the nerves. And
Oh, I need that.
skullcap's one of my favorites. It's in the mint family. It's very, very safe. And yeah, you can find these plants at most herb shops.
Awesome. That's great advice. It sounds like, health and wellness is at the core of your business. So I'm interested in, are there any practices that you kind of tie into your day to make sure that you're kind of living the mission of your company?
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, since a lot of people listening are, early founders, that these are things I learned over time. I had to burn myself out before I put these in place. So no pressure, but the sooner the better. I think that starting my day with meditation and a walk is so important. Trying not to look at my phone before 9 a.m. when I really come online, I can feel such a difference in the days that I don't versus the days that I do. Because even if you're just scanning your personal Instagram, it's like, it just wakes up your brain in a very jarring way. So waking up your brain a bit more slowly, whether that's reading, walking, meditating, or taking time for all of those things is so important. I do that every single day. Making sure I'm very hydrated. I drink a lot of water throughout the day. I drink a lot of herbal tea throughout the day. Just something warm and calming on my desk to center me is very important. And yeah, making sure I'm lucky working from home that I can eat 3 healthy meals a day, but I think that's so important too.
Do you drink coffee?
I don't.
Okay. So I didn't until 2 years ago, and now I'm completely hooked. And I want to not be hooked. I need to like work my way off it. Any advice on what I can do instead? Have a green tea, maybe?
No, I do actually. So Wooden Spoon launched last July our herbal coffee. And Jasmine, I have tried all the herbal coffees on the market, and I truly think ours is the best. I am so proud of it. It is gently stimulating from the maca. Like it feels like a gentle cup of coffee. So it will wake you up and you shouldn't drink it at night, but it has gut healing herbs and the maca, which is an adaptogen that's gently stimulating. And I have had so many people voluntarily transition away from coffee to the herbal coffee because they love it so much. And I think it really is the only one I've tried that hits the same as coffee. It's so good.
Okay, I've actually never even heard of herbal coffee. So I'm really behind on this. I didn't know this was a thing. So, okay, I'm going to have to order yours.
We'll get you some. Yeah, herbal coffees. There are a lot of them. Dandy Blend's a famous one, but I think you'll like it.
Okay, amazing. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for all of your advice, both the business tips and all of your insights as an absolute pro in the wellness space. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks, Jasmine.
Hi again, guys. It's Jasmine. I just wanted to thank you for tuning in and reminding you to drop us a review. 5 stars is preferred if you enjoyed the show. It's how we get all of these great guests on board, and it really helps us to reach more people. So thanks for that, and I'll chat with you next time.